Nothing of note happened last week as teams returned, recharged, and refreshed. Lucky fans picked up some swag from their favorite teams, as well as crushed the cornhole competition during the tailgate. We'll see which teams can do the same with our matches today. Darshan rallied his crew for their battle today against Huni and Echo Fox, who hope to come back hard after a less than stellar performance at Rift Rivals. Hello and welcome everyone to the NALCS Countdown, where for 30 minutes we reflect on North America at Rift Rivals and look at how the league is shaping up until the timer reaches 0 and we jump into Champion Select. Also, Freak's here.
Hey,
Yay!
buddy. How you doing?
We've upped the average ELO of the analyst desk.
By a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if we want to admit that.
Thanks, Mark.
Come on.
Unranked in ELO hell, doing all right.
I'm okay.
All right, okay. Well, last week, Los Angeles hosted Rift Rivals, and unfortunately, the hometown teams came up short. Regional pride wasn't the only thing at stake in last week's tournament, though. Jobs were on the line.
Huni, please, I've been talking a lot of smack to the EU PAs. My job is sort of on the line. If you don't pull this off, then there's going to be no more Joel NA PA. So just please, please, please.
And with that, promises must be kept. Joel was fired.
Man, it's sad. He had all his stuff.
Yeah, he had that much stuff here.
Yeah, he's been here a long time.
Yeah, he has been here a long time. Build up quite an accoutrement.
He was with us back in 2013.
But here's the deal, right? A show can't operate without production assistance. So let me welcome our new hire from EU, Joel.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Yeah.
Bonjour.
Glad we found that replacement so
Yeah,
quickly.
yeah, it was a lucky find.
I couldn't quite understand what you're saying. It's such a thick accent.
Right, yeah. Well, we're glad to have him here. And wow, it's fun to make fun of ourselves after Rift Rivals. The results from last week highlighted some concerns around the North American squads. I want to dive into some of those now. First up, starting with you, Mark.
Yeah, the one that stood out to me the most was the problems that TL seems to have with consistency, because this is supposed to be the great North American hope, it kind of feels like. They went off. They clearly were the best team after summer finals. They go to MSI. They come back, and they're still, despite being tied with some teams in record, still look like the best North American team. And it feels like every time these guys are expected to go out and perform and there's some pressure on them, they come up short. You look at how Rift Rivals started, that 0-5 start. They were completely falling apart, and then once all the pressure was off them, they start picking up some wins, they start playing well, and then by some miraculous way, turn of events, they have a tiebreaker to get out and make it out of groups, and they choke. And then here at Rift Rivals, they had this whole great start to the day. They were beating teams and stuff like that, and then as soon as it mattered, the final day, to win the event, they go out and lose to Splice, who hadn't beat anyone yet. And as a North American fan, as a Team Liquid fan, I see this kind of pattern emerging that when the pressure's on them, they fail to execute.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's always got to be a sum of the parts, right? It's the 5 players on stage who are making good plays or bad plays, and for whatever reason, you can have those really good games, like you beat RNG and whatever, and you do some really good things at places like MSI, and you have ones where you lose to Albus Nox, or you lose to Vietnam, or you lose to Fnatic, which is probably even more embarrassing, or you drop to Splice, which is the worst of it all. And it's you've got to keep yourself from getting to the very bottom edge of the bell curve where you're playing at your bottom 5%. Right. I don't know what it's going to take. If I had a magic wand that could fix it, I would make double, if not choke, international competitions anymore. But that's kind of happening. And double specifically is actually doing pretty well. I thought he was pretty strong through MSI and pretty strong through Rift Rivals, but Ole benched himself. Ole ate a minion when double was getting comboed out by a Morgana. The players are making catastrophically bad mistakes that should just not happen.
Yeah, and Freak, I like how you bring up Worlds of past years because it's not a new thing. Yeah. And even looking at Team Liquid specifically, this happened in the spring split as well, in between weeks 4 and 7, because they started 5-1. We were saying they were the greatest. Then they fell to 5th or 6th and surged to 4th at the end of the regular season. Yeah. So it is still clearly a team that doesn't have a way of staying consistent. So that's a persistent problem for not only North American teams, but specifically for Team Liquid.
So what do you blame? When you look at inconsistency in a team and the way they perform, where does the blame get placed? I know you said if you knew what the solution was, you'd wave your magic wand, but
I mean, I think it's so some mix I think is the mentality of players being focused on the day, right? you don't randomly lose all of your lanes to Splice for no reason, right? Something had to have changed, and maybe the coach screwed up and you didn't champ select right, or you didn't eat well that day or sleep well that night. Like maybe there's like purely physical things that just happened where you just did not take it as seriously as you should have. Or some of it's maybe just actually honing in on a play style and saying, hey, you know what? We're going to condense the champion pool. We're going to play, you know, these 7 champs per role. We're going to get very good at our comps. And then we're going to have that trough of like, oops, we played dumb stuff for 3 weeks. You'll actually have a strat that you can kind of react to.
Yeah, especially with the Rift Rivals one, it didn't feel like that because that was pretty much comfort across the board with what they got, the Sejuani, the Aurelia, the Lucian. And I think in this instance, that wasn't the case.
Right, yeah.
It definitely just feels like they have a bit of a mental block in some way where when the pressure's on them, they psych themselves up because, like, we're North America. We sometimes end up the butt as everyone's jokes, and we don't want to be that this time. So let's really go out there and kick some butt. And then you put this pressure on your back, and you start playing reserved, or you're in your own head thinking about other things than just how to play the game out.
Now, moving on, Jet, I know you had some thoughts around the way that teams were entering into the international competition.
So we also have to keep in mind at this Rift Rivals, even though we were sending 3 teams that were 4-2 in the spring split and the top 3 finishers from spring, were we really? Because Echo Fox played a roster with Demonte and Alltech in one of their games that they had never put on the Rift before. And then 100 Thieves walked in with Brandini and Levi, who also had never played with 100 Thieves before. So 2 of the teams that we sent to Rift Rivals were essentially demoing some of these new rosters. And this is something that is happening across the LCS. We just saw it more prominently at Rift Rivals. With franchising and with academy teams, I think the pool of players to pull from has gone from 60 to 100. Because instead of 1 sub, you now have 5. And teams are willing to pull the trigger on these things because they see they're not in first place, they want to be in first place, so you may as well make changes. But what's happening a lot of the time is the synergy is lost as they're bringing these guys up. So in the short term, I think it's making weaker teams, and specifically at Rift Rivals, we sent 2 rosters that were completely untested and lacked synergy.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting discussion to have because I know we kind of both want to jump in on this one. Changing up your roster and like lane swapping like Echo Fox has been doing, I think makes a lot of sense in the regular season. Like Echo Fox are a top 3 NA team, and they're gonna finish top 3, they're gonna make at least semifinals, and they're probably gonna go to Worlds.
They're doing that WoW experiment.
Yeah, right, exactly. They're so good, they can get away with that, and it's fine during the regular season. But you're up against like freaking G2 and Fnatic. Like, I think you should take Rift Rivals seriously. It is the 3rd most important international tournament of the year. There's Worlds, which 3 teams go to. There's MSI, which 1 team go to, which Echo Fox didn't. And there's Rift Rivals, which they got to go to.
3 teams go to.
Yeah, right. And so there are 2 international tournaments of the year for Echo Fox at most. And they're like, you know what, let's just make it practice, right? Like, screw trying to win the thing, right? And I feel like that's such a bad approach to it. 100 Thieves in a very similar boat. Like, I assume they had the capability to execute their Meteos onto trade next week and submit someday Meteos for Rift Rivals and say, and then when that's over, then we'll make the trade. And yes, it's 1 week less practice coming into the regular season, coming in for the hopes for Worlds, but this is your 2nd biggest tournament of the year because you didn't go to MSI. I think you should take it seriously, run your real roster, and try to win the thing.
I think maybe you can hold some of that criticism more against Echo Fox, but for 100 Thieves, I totally see where they're coming from, where, you know, as much as it's not like we don't care about Rift Rivals, it's just, do I want to be executing a trade in the middle of a week where I have to go from playing a game to playing a game in, you know, effectively 5 or 6 days and moving a guy into your team house, all this stuff. And I can understand them saying the optimal time to execute this trade is with the extra break that we're getting with Rift Rivals. And they go out and they also, it's still not a complete waste because you are getting more data on Levi and Brandini. Yes, it is at a very important international tournament, but I understand for this team where if you are going to be very disruptive, this is one time to do it. Whereas Echo Fox, they didn't have to deal with any other disruption.
I mean, I think they want to give Demonte international experience. Like, hey, is Demonte worth bringing to Worlds? Like, and like, I understand the idea of, hey, this is a great time to test people, but like the difference is 6 days of practice and deciding whether or not you think the 2nd biggest tournament your team's going to play this year is valuable. In my opinion, it is. You're representing your region, trying to be the best teams in Europe, and I think you should put your best foot forward, not say, well, it's basically scrims. And that's a difference of opinion that I think it is reasonable to be on the other side of that one, but that's where I sit.
And that's where you're kind of balancing the right choice for the team and the right choice for the team as a representative of the region.
Well, what are you valuing, your summer split win-loss or your Rift Rivals win-loss?
Exactly. Because ultimately, I want to get to Worlds.
Yeah, and also there's a chance that Echo Fox thought that was their best foot forward. They thought Monte and Phoenix is actually the roster we're hoping to run in week 4, and it just didn't work.
Yeah. Outside of inconsistencies and outside of roster stuff, Freak, what was your major takeaway from the tournament?
The big thing I saw was, and we've all seen the stat online, the 7-0 Aatrox Heimerdinger record against North America. And I do think that new champions and new things like this are a great time to show that your analysts are good, that your players are good, that you can jump on things first. And what's funny is typically that's been a good hallmark for new teams. Like, RNG won MSI because Kai'Sa came out and they played around Uzi. And CLG went to the finals of MSI with Aurelion Sol and Huhi, right? The opportunity to say, hey, there's something new, let's go learn it, is a great opportunity to prove that you're the best and to jump out ahead. And I think NA super hard dropped the ball here, where it should not be that hard to put in a bunch of games on Aatrox and have the champion ready. And if you're not ready to play Aatrox, it shouldn't be that hard to figure out your lane matchups. Like, Echofox clearly thought Renekton was a good counter pick into Aatrox. So good, they threw their mid laner, who hasn't played Renekton in years, on the champion. He got smashed. And then they put Huni on the champion. He got smashed. It's like, how hard is it to play a 6-minute laning phase against another top laner?
Academy
like,
top laner.
Huni says, hey, Impact, I hear Aatrox is a new champion. You want to play some Fiora Aatrox games and just play for 6 minutes and then remake the game. You can get through 10 laning phases in an hour and actually learn laning phases and figure out that you're not going to counterpick yourself on stage. And like, it's amazing to me that you can drop the ball this hard for a champion that was in the game for a week and a half.
Do you think the frustration around, game knowledge and preparation towards picks is warranted, Mark?
Yeah, I just don't see how Europe on a plane figured out Aatrox better than North America did. I just don't understand how they landed. They were jet lagged, and they're like, I instantly know how to play this champion to the optimal level, and somehow we knew that Aatrox was good into Renekton, and you thought it was Renekton good into Aatrox. So yeah. I absolutely agree with this point, and like, I just think it's a situation. It's not like we thought we could beat Aatrox. We didn't even play it. Like, no one tried to play it on our side. So it was very disappointing to see. Yeah,
and I do think Aatrox and Heimerdinger are different problems. Right. So the Aatrox is something that is clearly new for everyone, and they're all grinding. Heimerdinger is a champion who in the patch notes is pretty much untouched for the past year, and Europe was the one region that was playing the most of it. It's still mostly unseen around the world, and that's a champion who, I did some digging into it this week, is actually really hard mechanically, as well as being really unique in the way you're trying to use him. So I'm more willing to accept that they just hadn't played against a good Heimerdinger, and that was kind of their first exposure to it. And now everyone's grinding games and trying to learn at that level. Aatrox, though, is the one that's completely unacceptable.
I got to jump in here. We're running short on time, but the final question that results from this is what changes? What effective change comes into the NALCS as a result of these frustrations? Because last year, EU was the one, losing to NA. We saw them make a number of changes moving towards Worlds, and yet again, they outperformed us on the World stage. So from NA, what's the impetus? What should happen?
So I think early on, they're already trying to adopt the new picks. I think they need to be much more willing to play champions from other regions that they're not necessarily practiced on earlier. So Pyke, Heimerdinger, and Aatrox are all huge for them. And I think probably by week 6, they should drastically reduce the number of people they're subbing, because as soon as you hit playoffs or Worlds, you're going to a 6-man roster anyway. So locking that down is really important.
The experimentation thing is a big concern for me, just because even week 1 of this split, when we didn't have a single funnel game in our first week and it was being played all around the world, and we were one of the only major regions that didn't even try it, that's really disappointing to me. Yeah. Aatrox is the same symptom that comes up all the time. People just don't want to branch out and learn new things. Right. If a champ gets released by Riot and it's not strong, it's gonna get buffed. So just put in the games as soon as it comes out, take your negative 100 LP and learn the champ.
Right. Final thoughts here on this?
I mean, learning consistency is going to be hard, so I don't know what that fix is, but hey, keep trying to do your research, try to figure it out. I mean, this is something that sports have been trying to do for decades, of course, but yeah, I mean, again, be willing to experiment. Agree with Mark on this one. All
right, well, we're 16 minutes away from watching the first of the Rift Rivals teams hit the Rift. We'll see what, if anything, they have changed coming into today. Now, League's newest addition to the Darkstar line was designed with the help of cho'gath fan Brian, who visited Riot last year through our partnership with the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Brian's wish of making a kick-ass skin for his favorite champ wouldn't have been possible without the support of great non-for-profit organizations like Make-A-Wish. So Riot partnered with Global Giving to donate 100% of revenue from Darkstar cho'gath to over 20 regional nonprofits around the world. Darkstar Cho is only available, though, until August 10th, so pick up yours now to support a nonprofit in your region. For more information on the fundraising around the skin and the charities being supported, check out the article over at leagueoflegends.com. We're going to take a breather. When we return, we look at today's first match and hear from Echofox's new head coach. That and more when we return. Welcome back to the NALCS Countdown. About 11 minutes away from Game 1. And as the race for Oakland ramps up, make sure to pick up your tickets for the NALCS Summer Finals at the Oracle Arena. Tickets are on sale now for September 8th and 9th, so you can witness the crowning of the summer champion. With that, though, let's take a look at our schedule. It is presented by Jersey Mike's Subs. The day kicks off with Counterlogic Gaming, hoping to take down a wounded Echo Fox in Game 1, followed by a battle amongst first-place teams in 100 Thieves versus TSM, with 3 more matchups before we call it a day. Later today, though, Riot Games 2 will be hosting a stream from the NALCS Lounge, where Kobe will be joined by Huni and DeMonte for Game 3, Clutch Gaming versus Golden Guardians. If you're looking for a sub above during our games today, order a Jersey Mike's sub at jerseymikes.com with the promo code JMNALCS to earn in-game content, plus a chance to win a VIP trip to the summer final. Let's get a reminder, though, of where the team or the entire league ranks as we pull up the standings. We see that kerfuffle at the top of 100 Thieves, Echo Fox, TSM, and Team Liquid, with a smattering at 5th, just 1 game away from them at 3 and 3.
Good word choice.
I like it, right? Okay, now ahead of his matchup today, new head coach ThinkCard wants to assure Echo Fox fans this is still the team they know and love.
So the change in head coach is just something that we think is going to not impact that much, just because me and Nick have built such like a good culture around it. So no matter who's on stage, it's always going to be a successful team. We just have to make sure that this change doesn't impact the players in any way, and just where it's still going to be Echo Fox. So we're still Echo Fox. Our Rift Rivals, I think it really showed that we have some like champ pool issues. So we really spent the last week and a half focusing on like playing more champions and making sure that we can always have a really strong draft, so that we're not like pigeonholed by not being able to play against or not being able to play certain champions.
And I actually want to back up what he said at the beginning there, which is that he doesn't think the team is going to be all that different. I've come by to the team rooms a couple of times, and anytime I've gone to the Echo Fox room, it's both those two there, at least up until today, obviously, as he's stepped down. But it's been both those two there. So I definitely think like ThinkCard's been there with the team. He knows his players, and it shouldn't be a very big problem for them transitioning.
And recognizing some changes that need to be made following their performance at Rift Rivals.
Sure.
Now, turning our attention towards that first matchup of the day, Echo Fox are fielding a part of that North American squad that came up short at Rift Rivals.
Yeah, and they are definitely, like you heard, they're searching for what they need to do to work on things. Inero stepping down, they want to learn more champions. They spent the last week working on all that, and so there's a lot of things that this team is doing to try and make up that lost ground, but I think it's still worth saying that we were saying at the top of the day that they're still a good team in North America regardless.
Yeah, and I find it interesting, too, because before Rift Rivals, this was the team that did everything, and you never knew what they were going to throw out. Yet at Rift Rivals, they were the team that were pigeonholed into certain matchups and not knowing what they're doing. So it's good that they found those holes, but now it's a matter of, can you actually plug those holes with the players and coaching you have available?
Right, and we're specifically looking at a matchup against CLG. This is a team that, throughout their history in the North American LCS, has kind of always been pitted as a more consistent team, at least in terms of the way they play a measured game, less hectic, chaotic, you know, than a team like Echo Fox.
And it's really interesting because Darshan actually has a pretty good record against Huni, all things considered, 7-8, just shy of 50%, which doesn't sound that crazy, but when you consider that Huni is typically an 80% win rate player in North America or EU, that's actually a great win rate against Huni. And Darshan and all of CLG are a good matchup against them.
Yeah, and I think specifically why they're a good matchup is Echo Fox is that incredibly volatile team, especially in the early game, who's always looking for a fight. And COG has consistently been very good in the first 10 to 15 minutes of the game. Their first blood percentage is always near the top of the league. So once they have that small lead, if Echo Fox then throws themselves at COG, they have a higher win rate. And what's funny is almost any team that Huni is on takes on the personality of a Huni team in North America. So they're going to throw themselves at the opponent team, and if they're behind when it happens, their chance of victory goes down a little.
Well, and Freak, if we continue talking about the Darshan Huni matchup, Huni was one of the major underperformers at Rift Rivals, Dardoch being the one who was kind of charged with picking up some of the slack throughout all that.
Yeah, and you can see right here, Dardoch had a much better Rift Rivals. He was one of the ones bringing out Kindred, but I just noticed a bunch of Kindred games in EU this week as well. I mean, he's absolutely been amazing here. Dardoch Huni, I think, does need to play with some level of respect, especially if they're in a funnel game where Dardoch is not ganking his lane anymore, not warding his lane anymore. He's got to be a bit more cautious about that. We saw some very big overcommitments from him as well. Also, you know, kind of picking himself, or at least playing the matchup wrong in the Renekton and Aatrox games as well. So definitely does need to step up here.
And there is a slight concern here for me because I really liked Dardoch's pairing with Huni because he was always going to look up to Huni and Dardoch wasn't going to be the best player on the team. But when he's been the best player on a team before, and that didn't end well from an attitude perspective. So we need to see the maturity from Dardoch, if he is the best performing player on the team, to not have other players on his team fall down, but instead find a way to lift everyone back up.
And I think hopefully that's going to work well with just the Echo Fox environment. From what it seems like, they are, a more relaxed team than some other orgs that he's been on. I think, you know, CLG, Immortals, TL have all been teams that wanted to have like a really strong, almost like top-down approach where the coach is, we're 100% in control of a lot of situations, where with Echo Fox, it feels very player focused, and they really value what each person around them thinks.
I mean, we saw a smile on Dardok's face there as he took the stage, so it seems like spirits are high in the Echo Fox camp. Sure. Flip side, CLG, this is a team that we haven't seen now for 2 weeks, so again, there could be a lot of speculation about what's happening behind closed doors. Sure. If they saw weaknesses exposed in Echo Fox at Rift Rivals, how could they choose to maybe orient their practices to specifically target those holes?
Yeah, so talking about CLG and what it would take for them, I think, to beat Echo Fox here, the win condition I have for them basically is to find somewhere to counterpick. They are, I believe, red side in this game, which is good. You can save a lane for last. I want to see them counterpick Darshan in against Huni. We already saw the 7-8 win rate individually. CLG is statistically the #1 early game team in NALCS. They're above Cloud9 in that stat. Echo Fox is number 9. Out of 10. This is a gigantic early game mismatch, and CLG have had some problems closing out games. The #1 early game team is only 3-3, but you finally in a counter pick, you have Huhigo roam over there on his Aurelion Soul or whatever wave clear champion he wants to be on to get up there, and you smash that lane open, you get first route, you get that lead, and then you use that advantage, that leverage that you're going to get from Darshan versus Huni, I'm assuming, or maybe bot lane, but I'm assuming it's top lane. You get your 20-minute Baron, and you close the game out. This is still a very, very fast meta game. Baron's easy to kill, turrets are pretty easy to crack down, and you just... You put your practice around making your 8 to 20 minutes actually work. That's where CLG drops the ball. But the first 8, I think you're going to have by a style, and you've learned 8 through 20.
And I like that idea, but I also know that CLG has had problems being too inflexible with their pregame plan before. Like, they'll get a lead top lane, but they'll send 7 people up there. There's not 7 people on the map. That's essentially what it feels like.
They bring in Daisy and Tibbers.
And lose the rest of their base.
Leisha buff up there.
Yeah, definitely draft and play to one side, but make sure you're not losing focus of the whole map. Is what CLG's problems have been in the past.
Flip side of the matchup, Mark, you're taking Echo Fox. What are the win conditions?
Yeah, I am very much in agreement with the strengths of CLG. Yep. So for me, Echo Fox should actually play more reactive early on. They sometimes get themselves in too much trouble getting their hand caught in the cookie jar when they're trying to make plays and it's not 100% synced up. And you know CLG is going to make plays. You know Reignover is going to get first blood. So play back. Let CLG kind of get their early advantages, because there's a reason they're 3-3. Despite having the best early game in the league. It's because they make mistakes later on in the game, and you want to wait for that portion where CLG are not completely in their wheelhouse with all this great early game planning. And then Echo Fox is great at finding these kind of strange fights in the mid game, and that's where you're going to punish CLG the most. So play a little reactive early on, and then switch gears once you get your own lead, or just if the game is stalled out at that 20-minute mark.
Plays out that way. It sounds like we got a really fun matchup ahead of us with 3.5 minutes till that one. Let me get you guys' predictions for the day. Up on the board, we're including Freak in this one, of course.
Hey!
I knew you were picking CLG.
One major difference.
Wait, that means I win!
That comes to you.
Jack picked CLG. That's for sure. Echo Fox win this one. Jack. Oh, Mark, 5-0. We in this one.
Yeah, Freak and Mark together on this one. Since this, game one is the only one in which we disagree, and I didn't actually get win conditions from you, Jack. You did, of course, respond to Freaks. Why is it that you have confidence in CLG over Echo Fox here?
I mean, you never have that much confidence in CLG, if I'm being completely honest. But most of it comes with them being the best early game team in the league, and Echo Fox potentially being in a very scattered state after Rift Rivals. I know over in the EU LCS, with the travel back, it hurts them a little bit more, but those teams had a hard time this week. G2 went 0-2 despite being undefeated before. So I think there's a chance. There's a slight Rift Rivals hangover. They were worried to wrap up against a bunch of European teams, whereas CLG has had this whole time to look at Echo Fox, figure out their own game. They get to see the Heimerdinger. They get to scrim against it. They get a little bit more time to prepare, and I think this first game up gives them a decent chance.
The other matchup I want to talk about, now all 3 of you are in alignment, but 100 Thieves TSM, although Cloud9's another topic of discussion we'll get to maybe at some point later in the day, but 100 Thieves TSM, this is TSM, the only 4-2 team that we didn't see go to Rift Rivals, but yet they're first place teams, and you guys are confident the matchup's going to go one way.
I think for 100 Thieves, the scary part is so much of their recent success was with Funnels and Meteos in the bot lane. Meteos isn't there. Does that kill the funnel strategy? Can they continue to play what was working for them just a week and a half ago?
All right, so with the roster shakeup, less confidence there. Tomorrow, we'll be sitting down with NALCS Commissioner Christopher Greeley. If you have any questions for essentially the person who runs the league, tweet to @LOL Esports, and we'll grill him tomorrow for the answers that you need. With the NALCS countdown almost complete, I've got to say congrats, Freak. You're the first person to make it through an entire countdown sitting in that seat.
Yeah, thanks, Dash. I mean, I really am just the best. Ow!
Oh, God!
Oh,
what?
Whoa, fire!
Jack, put him out, put him out! Is he all right?
The cat's stuck on. I can't put the water out. What's going on? I think it's gone.
Well, thank you very much, Dash. It's damn shame. No, freak, fallen soldier. My name is Clayton Captain Flowers Reigns, and one caster I'll never let die is Aiden Zyrene Moon. I got you, buddy.
Yeah,
I got you.
F's in the chat for
F's
freak.
in the chat for freak. Gone, but never forgotten. We're going to be getting into Champion Select momentarily here. We are going to be playing on patch 8.13. We are potentially going to see some of the things that we saw during Rift Rivals. Hopefully, as the region who got second place, we can learn a couple of lessons from that contest and bring some of that information back here.
Yeah, I think we're looking for the Aatrox, we're looking for the Heimerdinger, and a lot of developments have actually happened in the weeks that we're going into Rift Rivals, and a little bit coming out of it. I think there's a lot of Smite mid laners that have popped up. Talon, Aatrox, Echo, and Morgana can kind of be played in the mid lane with Smite to do the Raptor Camp level 1 and get level 2. And then Gragas and Jhin are two that I've been seeing kind of sneak up in the meta. So we'll talk a little bit more about those if they get locked in, but I want to talk about these two teams here. Echo Fox bringing in DeMonte into the mid lane. This guy couldn't play the first 5 games because of a ruling, and then Echo Fox said, you know what?